Okay, hi. Hope everyone is awake. I kind of feel like when the Grateful Dead played Woodstock. I don't know if I'm dating myself. They played in the morning. There were thunderstorms, though. We'll be okay. Anyway, so yes. Well, the state of AR and gaming, AR in general, it's just moving so rapidly. And even since I submitted this talk and the concept for it, it's evolved a little bit. But I'm going to talk about mobile gaming today, mobile AR gaming and AR in general. But I'm also going to talk about the state of AR and mobile AR and sort of how I see gaming fitting into that context. And it's great to see that at least some people here care about gaming, because I kind of feel like it's the AW Enterprise show this year, which is fine. But there are still people who care about gaming and entertainment and other uses. So just a little bit about us first. We got into AR about 5 years ago. I've been experimenting with it for years before that. We did a game that we announced before Pokemon Go. It was a collaboration with Phil Tippett, who's an Academy Award winner. And among the many things he's done in his career, he created the famous holo chess scene. So we partnered up with him. We used volumetric capture, which back then we called photogrammetry, on his real-life monsters. And we created a game inspired by that scene called Holo Grid Monster Battle. It's come out on, I think, 9 to 10 platforms now, and it was one of the first ARKit Game of the Days by Apple. So my background is I worked at LucasArts in the 90s. I started the visual effects group there. I was on what was called the Technology Council, which sounds kind of creepy, but it was cool, at Skywalker Ranch. I left there and did a startup with a bunch of people from ILM, creating software tools for the effects industry. Then I've also had a company, Pileated Pictures, that has done service work for years for the toy and game industry and entertainment. And on that note, we've done a lot of work over the years for Hasbro, Spin Master, a lot in the toy kid space, first doing web stuff, then moving to mobile, and now we're really focused on AR almost exclusively. All we do all day is experiment with AR. We're doing multiple AR projects, which I'll show a couple of at the end. We are toy and gaming industry veterans, and we are actively doing projects and service work for major brands and always looking to take on more. Our experience, we've done GPS and geolocation apps. Before Pokemon Go, we did a game with DreamWorks, where you kids played in the backseat of their car and drove around. AR, obviously. We have experience with VR. We've brought our game to Gear. And we have a lot of experience with connected devices, which is already becoming a thing again and will continue to as headsets and other form factors emerge. So, the state of AR, and in particular, mobile AR and AR gaming. So like I said, AR, it just is evolving so rapidly. If you follow the space closely, there is major news almost every week. And so, we're going to sort of dissect that a little bit and sort of try to see where games fit into that. So one thing that's really important to understand, I just want to make the distinction that when I talk about AR and many other people who talk about it here, we look at it as the next computing shift, a natural evolution, where we went from mainframe computers to desktops, to laptops, to mobile devices. We look at it as AR as a next step in that, as a mass medium entertainment device. So Tim Cook has said it's going to be bigger than iPhones. Magic Leap has raised over $2 billion on this sentiment. Over 20 and counting AR cloud companies have raised capital. So the distinction I'm trying to make here is AR is big business right now, and people are making revenue from it, and you see it all over this show in the enterprise sector, and that's great. They're paving the way and hopefully figuring things out for us when it gets to a mass market level, but we're really talking about AR as a mass market medium, something that's going to fundamentally change the way we interact with the world through technology. Whether that's with headsets or mobile devices, that's an interesting subject. So a brief note about headset AR, because I'm mainly going to talk about mobile here. So really, our game, we brought it out on HoloLens. We've worked with Microsoft closely, but really as it's played out, Microsoft has paved the way for that enterprise kind of AR sector. And now you're seeing many other devices kind of come into it. But sort of in the corner, we have the Magic Leaps of the world with putting headsets on Shaquille O'Neal and just doing weird things that no one can really figure out. They seem to me, this is my opinion. This speech will have my opinions and facts, or at least if you consider data, polls, facts. But my opinion is they could do a lot better job embracing the development community, but I'm not writing them off yet. We'll see. So I think it's interesting to point out, so last year I talked here also at AWE. I think like a lot of people, I left the conference feeling, wow, I am just on top of AR right now. I know everything there is to know. Went back home, had a nice weekend with the family. Monday morning, Apple announces ARKit, and the entire AR landscape completely changed overnight. So I think it's a really good time to reflect back, on a year of what has happened since then. And I'm bracing now, more prepared for Monday for whatever Apple's going to announce as well, so won't be caught by as much surprise. But we kind of all knew that was coming. So we're going to look at just some data now from some different sources. This is from a site that I like, that I recommend, called Artillery. They're here at the show, I think. I love the questions they ask to users. I think it's important to note out, and I wish they would do another survey where they kind of take out Pokemon Go out of the equation, just because it tilts everything so much. But this is not going to be a Kool-Aid talk, okay? We're going to look at reality. So this is asking people how, up to now, have they used mobile AR? And as you see, almost 70% of the people have not. So these are my ugly red lines. But when you ask the people what types of mobile AR they've used, accounting for Pokemon in there, games just completely dominate. Social, Snapchat as well. And of course, when you want to start picking apart polls, I wonder, with people answering this, do they even realize when they're using Snapchat and Facebook, is it AR? So it's easy to pick apart some of this data if you want to. Again, what types of mobile ARs would be most valuable to you? And the blue is for the people who used AR, and again, games just completely dominating. And then you get into the scary part of the grays, of the people who haven't used AR, and by far, they're just not interested. So why are they not interested? How likely are they going to use mobile AR in the next year? And most people, by far, either extremely unlikely or neutral, which I look as a sort of ambivalent answer. Why are people saying this? We're kind of all in the bubble, right? We like AR, but we have to remind ourselves how the general public looks at it. Why haven't they used it when asked? Just not interested, right? They just don't understand it. There's not a compelling use case yet for them, for the people at least who've been asked in this poll. And we see this as well, even with gamers, which I'll get into. Now, on the more positive side, and this is looking at ARKit data, ARKit apps only, and this is from Sensor Tower, this is one of the most encouraging data points I've seen, right? Since ARKit has came out, just see an amazing growth curve there. So if this continues, this is encouraging. This gives me hope. So in this space, there is this large sentiment, and Artillery's written about it, Artillery, other people have, of sort of, I feel like people are kind of waiting for this killer AR app to emerge. And maybe the people here, you guys kind of believe in games and entertainment, but there's definitely a strong sentiment among this community that it will not be a game. It will be a more utility type app. And again, when you look at the data up to now, games are completely dominating. But I understand that logic, right? Mobile phones did not really take off. Games were early leaders and pushed the technology, but it wasn't until communication, GPS, connectivity, that's when mobile devices really. So the argument makes perfect sense. It's logical. And when you look at the perceived installed user base of 500 million devices, you can see why investors and other people get very excited. But again, let's remind ourselves of the reality. And when we talk about this killer AR app, and I guess this is my default AWE, have to mention Pokemon Go slide, but I have to ask the question, has it already come? And Pokemon Go gets mentioned so much at this conference, but I really don't see it looked at sort of closely in the way I look at it as much. And it gets debated, was it really an AR game or not? But the way I look at it is, through my lens, it's hard to say this was not a killer AR app. This was a cultural moment. It exposed the public to what AR was for the first time. And just like when people went and first saw movies on crude devices that they had to crank, it just introduced the concept to them. And it was the most popular app, most downloaded of all time, made the most revenue of all time, is still very healthy. This, to me, is an AR killer app. And if it showed people what AR was, but if you don't agree with me and you don't sort of define it as an AR app, that is perfectly okay, but I'll ask you the question and make the case here, and if you follow this space closely, Niantic bought a company last year called Escher Reality that we were good friends with, and still good friends with, and one of the first AR cloud companies we were working with, and it doesn't take much to kind of put two and two together and read the tea leaves that they're going to seriously up the AR game on Harry Potter. And I make the case and the argument that really the future of mobile AR, especially over the next 6 to 12 months, hinges on this title. And there will be no bigger use case in any utility app that is going to use the AR cloud and get people mapping the world than this game. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see where it's going to come from right now. So what kind of AR games have we seen so far? And these are a bunch of our tests and experiments, but in the App Store, we've seen AR board games, we've seen pet games, we're starting finally to see GPS games. Jurassic Park just came out. I'm really curious to see how these other GPS games do, and because a lot of people kind of associate that with AR, and we don't necessarily. It's a type of AR game. We've seen battle games, scavenger hunt, real-time strategy like the machines, and we're finally starting to see AR MP games. And at the end of this, I'm going to show a little video and test, which if you follow me on Twitter, I've hinted at a little bit, but I'm going to show something that we've been working on with a partner, Jito Maps, that is a totally new approach to AR multiplayer. That's a tease. So, when looking at AR right now, I like to compare it to VR. So VR, it seems like the common sort of sentiment, and you felt this at GDC too, and you hear it here, is that we're in this trough of disillusionment phase in VR. But again, I just like to look at the facts. And there's no doubt that they have not sold or moved as many headsets as they had hoped. But again, be careful listening to people who project things. So in VR, what I see is we have users who've purchased dedicated hardware. They're committed. There are dedicated marketplaces strictly for VR that they can go to. They want content for their devices because they've just spent money on them. In the VR space, early on, you saw a variety of investments, many game companies, content companies, storytelling companies, tool companies, telecommunication VR companies were all funded. This resulted in a large, healthy dev ecosystem, which is helping VR survive today. And even since I made this slide, it needs to be updated because Beat Saber, which is at the show, has pre-sold 100,000 units, which means they've made $2 million before it's even shipped. No one is making anything close to this in mobile AR yet. So by comparison, in AR, there's been over 13 million ARKit downloaded so far, and over half of them are games. That's so cool. But there's over 500 million devices out there. So is that a good number? You tell me. You be the judge. In AR, our apps have to go into these already insanely overcrowded app stores. Now we're even more reliant on Apple and Google to stick out than you were before, and that was already a hard ask. As we've just seen, by and large, most users aren't even aware their devices support AR or that it exists or don't have an interest in it. And there's very few game AR content companies who are fully dedicated to AR, and we want there to be more of them. But there is hope. We are optimistic, and we do see a bright horizon here, and we are bullish on the future. So just talk a little bit about what we've learned so far. So the first point is, for me, I'm always hesitant to talk about this, but I heard Charlie Fink mention it the other day, so that gives me motivation. But to me, this is the #1 issue facing mobile AR, and it's really silly and stupid. But guess what? Because it's, I don't know how many people live and breathe AR every day. It's easy to watch videos and read articles about it. But when you're really using it, it's hard to hold your phone up for a long time. And people just don't want to do it, right? When people walk down the street, they hold their phones here. Mostly they're resting on themselves. This is what mobile AR requires in general. So we've learned to keep our sessions short, right? HoloGrid was more of a board game. It took longer. Everything we've made since then and are working on now, much shorter sessions. Portrait mode. We feel this is critical for mobile AR. Again, just because of having to hold your phone up. If you are making a landscape AR mode, you better have a really, really good reason for doing it, in my opinion. And we found AR games are fun. There's this notion here, again, like always waiting for something else, like, oh, we need multiplayer, and that's going to take, and I'm about to contradict myself. But single-player multiplayer games are fun, and we know this not just because we think they're fun, but we've been out there at games conferences and events, and we're always showing our AR games to people. And these are gamers, technology people in the space, but by and large, we put these games in front of them, and they've never seen a modern AR game. They're blown away. A lot of times, the first comment is, wow, the tracking is amazing. And I'm like, OK, that's ARKit. But yeah, thank you. OK, we appreciate it. What we need. So we do need multiplayer, obviously. We want multiplayer games. We're working on multiplayer shared experiences. But I went to Matt Miesniak's, I said his name right, talk from 60AI yesterday, and he kept saying it just has to work. And he's right, it can't be hard. We already see, because we track everything, we have lots of data now from our ARKit apps that are out there, so we see how common users struggle just with ARKit scanning and placing stuff. And the common belief, which I'm about to dispel, is, like if you look at Google AR Cloud Anchors, there's quite a few steps, if you've played with that, to get that up and running, right, and working. One user has to scan, save it, next user has to relocalize. This is typically how people believe AR multiplayer has to work. We need stable AR cloud solutions. I don't want to read any more Medium posts about the AR cloud, just give us the tech. We need GPS AR, Google and other companies. Mapbox is having their conference in the city. So this is all happening. We need more AR game devs. We need people committed to it. We need, missionaries, not mercenaries. And we need more funding for content. We need a marketplace, and we need support from the big players. In VR, we had Oculus and Google, and I keep waiting. Who are, where are those players in this space? So good times are ahead. AR games will pave the way. So this is one project we're just announcing that we're working on. This is with a toy company called WowWee. They actually had Toy of the Year last year, which you may have heard of. It was called Fingerlings. It was a monkey. This is actually the boy version, the male version, which is just rolling out. And we're making a AR kind of Tamagotchi battle app with these. And now, so this is the thing I was teasing about. So we've been working on this with Jito Maps. They're based in New York. They came out of Y Combinator. I'm just going to play this, and we'll see if you guys get what's going on. But what this is, it happens pretty quickly there. But there's no scanning of the area. There's no reloading. There's no relocalization. What we're doing is using object detection, tracking the players, and instantly, just in one session, players are tapping on each other and instantly playing a real-time multiplayer game. So this is obviously not going to work for every type of AR multiplayer, but thousands of games could be made off of this technology and concept. So, we're exploring this. We're going to be featuring more videos of it on Twitter soon. And I'm running out of time, and I'm about to be kicked off the stage. So thank you, and thanks AWE for having me, and appreciate it.